So we're continuing with the verses by Nagarjuna, and we have a few more left. Today it's a verse that relates to arrogance. So, fun. You know, it's hard to see that in our minds. And once we start seeing it, it's hard to sit with a little bit. But then there comes a place where, because I guess it's, at least my experience was, it was kind of like maybe a little bit of revulsion. That's the word, revulsion. Like it was hard to see that in myself. It's not something I want to even think about myself, but there it is. But then there comes to a place where it's actually more, it feels more like a freedom to get rid of something that's more like a burden. And I think that's how I see arrogance now. It's just a burden that comes up in my mind and gets in the way. Yeah. And so I've kind of gone through phases, you know, because arrogance and jealousy are hard to recognize. We need help usually from others in terms of seeing those traits in ourselves. It's not really always that obvious. This weekend I was talking with someone who's about to retire, and it was just interesting because I've talked to many people in my previous work who had retired, and they often go through some difficulties when they've been in a profession. And I think this relates to this certain kind of shoring up that we do, even unknown to ourselves by some of our activities in our life. And we can do it with about anything. But some things in this society that are highly regarded are more susceptible to falling into arrogance. And even if you're trying not to, this was the discussion I was having with a physician this week, and who's getting close to retiring, who's made an effort in his life not to, you know, be disrespectful of people's time. You know, like I'm the doctor and I can be late, it doesn't matter, and you're the patient and you can just wait. He's had so many things in how he's gone about his career that he didn't want to become, and so he was very careful with that. But I realized after talking to him that what I found is there's also just in leaving a career, that there's also just I don't know what it is. There's something about anything that we kind of accomplish. It's easy to kind of use that as a crutch. I think that would be how I describe my experience. And so why do we even do that? And so when we have arrogance, sometimes we're belittling others. We're not really listening to them. We're not really so open to hearing what they have to say. And if we flip into the other side where we have like an inverted pride, then we're like almost not respecting ourselves. You know, we have to find some kind of middle there. And so what Nagarjuna says is, by being respectful to the recipient, one gets rid of arrogance. And so it really, when you want to work with this, when you recognize this in your mind, which might take some doing, then what to do? And to look at this, you know, being respectful, you know, that actually I find works. I'm lacking in respect in some way, shape, or form. You know, it can be very subtle things and it can be more gross things. But this antidote works. You know, it helps me set a more proper relationship with another person. And if it's with myself, like if I flip into like a inverted kind of pride kind of thing where I feel like I'm the worst of all, was the best, now I'm the worst. I'm also lacking respect for myself, I think, in those moments. And so kind of just, you know, I think to see what's underneath these things, to find out, well, where is our confidence going to come from then? If it's, you know, like oftentimes we use pride as a way of shoring ourselves up, and we're actually taught to do this. Our culture does this. You know, it's made in America, you know, the pride of being American and all these kind of things, and we kind of like, we use this to build our confidence on. So then the question is, well, what are you going to build your confidence on then? You know, and this is where, when you enter a Dharma practice, and you, there are, you know, Shantideva is very clear about this. he really sets these two apart. There's self-confidence and there's self-importance. And so when he writes about those, it helps you to discern them. We don't need to have this self-importance that distances ourselves from others. We do need to develop a kind of self-confidence. And then for my practice, my answer to that has been to base it on ethics. That's where I think I land. I think that I can feel quite confident that I'm making efforts to try to be an ethical person, and I can use that, the integrity that relates to make as the basis of something that I think is much more solid and won't leave me even when this life ends. You know, these are the kind of traits that I think will carry forth, and I want to carry forth, rather than, you know, the kind of totem pole who's, you know, how we have professions, you know, especially in the medical world, which always really drove me crazy. So I was very aware of this too, trying not to. I had a great respect for everyone I worked with, because if you think about it, like, say, especially a good example is at a hospital. The surgeons are kind of like the kings, right? But how good is a surgeon if the person who cleans that surgical suite doesn't do their job well? That surgeon will really be a poor surgeon if that room isn't clean. They'll have failures for their work. Everyone has to work together to make this thing happen. So that's the attitude I always took in my work life, is no one can do anything in this work environment without everybody working together. We all just have different tasks. But even within that, I found that there came a kind of arrogance to just, or kind of shoring up of something in my person related to having a career that I've kind of had to unwind. So there's many ways that this will, I think, come out for people, but really worthwhile to look at and to free ourselves from this burden that just gets in the way of really feeling really genuinely connected with people.